Okay, so today we're talking about sending email using Gmail with VBA. So there's some things to download here. I've already downloaded. I don't think I've downloaded either of these yet. Let me download both of these. Oops, that one doesn't download. I'm gonna have to right click that one and say download. Right click, and what is it? Save link as. It may be different on a different browser, but that'll save that file instead of just displaying it. But before we can do what we need to do, we have to have your Google account configured. So how many of you already are using two-factor authentication on your primary Gmail account? So it looks like about half. So in order to be able to do this with your Gmail account, you have to have two-factor authentication set up, because we're going to essentially enable a kind of a less secure way to be able to access your Gmail account and to be able to do that automatically. And so Google says, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to set up two-factor authentication. If you don't have two-factor authentication set up on your primary email account, you should. We're going to do it in class today. If your primary Gmail account is a Gmail account, we're going to do that in class today. Regardless of whether we have to do it for class today, you should have two-factor authentication set up on your email account, even though it's kind of a hassle at times. You're able to take out your phone and authenticate through your phone as well as providing your password. Tell me, how bad could your life get if a bad actor got a hold of your primary email account? Like on a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 being I'm ready to commit suicide, how bad could your life be? Just shout out a number. Yeah, it's the 80s, 90s, it's up there. Because what can they do if they have your primary email account? They can reset every password. They can get access to every account you have. It's bad. And so if you don't already have two-factor authentication, do it today. So we're gonna do it for a Gmail account right now. If you don't use Gmail, find out how you do it wherever you're using your email. So let's go ahead and open this Google app passwords. The idea here is it says, listen, there's kind of a whole authentication scheme that has to happen when you log in to Gmail, and they've got it down pretty well. But if you want to have an application log in on behalf of you, that's a different game. And so we need to set up what's referred to as an app password. And so that's what we're going to do here. So let's come down to follow these instructions. Important, to create an app password, you need two-step verification on your Google account. Use two-step verification, very good. So let's go ahead and go to, I'm gonna go to Google, I'll go to my Google account, open it up. Create and use app passwords. Okay, how satisfied am I? I don't know how satisfied. Okay, so I'm here. I followed that link. It says go to security. Security. Are we coming along? Anyone say, hold on just a second? Not quite there. Okay, security. Under signing into Google, select two-step verification. Where is signing into Google? They made it sound so easy on the other page. Activity, how you sign into Google. Look, they changed what it says. It doesn't say signing into Google anymore. They should update their documentation. Select two-step verification. Here's two-step verification. I've had it since March of 2017. So you're going to select this, and now you'll have to log in, provide your password. And now you should have a button here that says turn on if you don't. And I'm not quite sure what to do next. So I need someone who doesn't have it turned on yet. Let me just come and look over your shoulder while you turn it on so I can kind of see if there's any gotchas that we need to do. Is there anyone who's actually doing this part? Oh, well then, I guess we will assume that you all have two-factor authentication turned on. All right. Like two-step verification. And now if we go to the bottom down here, we've got this thing here called app passwords. And I have none. I have no app passwords right now. So we're going to create an app password. click that right there. It says, all right, and that password will help you sign into a Google account, older apps and services that don't use modern security standards. Create a new app. So here's an app name. I'm just going to call this VBA Send Gmail. So the idea here is that you can create different app passwords that you will use to authenticate, and then you can revoke those at any time. So you might say, you know what, I don't need that service anymore, revoke that password, and you don't have that password no longer will work. Now, I'm going to create this off screen so I don't record it. And it should bring up something that looks about like this. It seems like the styling has changed from the time that I took this picture, but you've got this is the password that is the password. So it just generates, you don't get to pick the password. It generates a 16-digit random password, which is going to be pretty strong. So you're going to copy that and maybe paste it somewhere that you could refer to it later, like Notepad or something. And then we can see now that I've got VBA send Gmail is my password. I can delete it right here. Created on 214. Seems like it should be created at 214, yeah, whatever. Okay, so once you've got that app password, I think we're ready to move on. Anyone need a hand? All right, close that, close that, close that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and open up our that send Gmail file. Now it's an XLSM, so I got to make sure that I unblock it. So I'm going to rename this one for this year, _ fall of 23. Then I'm going to unblock it and open. Enable content. So here's the context here. We're going to suppose that you have been hired by the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau, and you're an intern there this summer or something, and you're assigned to the like recall division, and so there's like a series of complaints have been made. They've been received. We have here the date of the failure. We should have somewhere the year that, yeah, here's when the letter was sent in to the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau. These are all dealing with the anti-lock brake system. And so, here's the comment. ABS brakes, when applying the brakes in normal conditions, the pedal went to the floor and the brakes failed to stop, causing 3 accidents. Probably 1 accident with 3 cars, but that's this kind of summary of the brakes malfunctioned at low speed, strong vibration from wheels, but could not completely stop, ran into another car, created damage and bodily injury. So the idea here is that you have been assigned to this set of people to kind of follow up. And so step 1 is to reach out to them and let them know that you are on their case. And so let's start off by putting their emails in here. Now, we don't have their real emails. And I used to actually put my email in here to start with. And I have several that I could put in here. But you want to be able to send these emails to some place that you can check. So if you have an email besides your Gmail account, because you're going to be using your Gmail account to do it, so maybe put your BYU address here. I've got a dozen of them. I don't know. Well, I know this one works. It's one I use all the time. So, of course, these would be different email addresses, but these are going to be the email address that we're going to send it to. Again, don't put my email address in there. Put an email address that you can check so you can verify that the email is going through when you send it. It'll be coming from your Gmail account, going to some other account that you have access to. All right, and why don't I go ahead and fill myself in here? Gov Allen. Not sure what I just did. Agent phone number 801-372-0683. I'm just going to copy those down. I wonder if the phone number will copy. Okay. So we're going to send out these emails in a personal way, so that we say, hey, dear Sharon, when I receive, in fact, what we're going to say is like that file that we downloaded. So, or was it email message? Dear first name, when I heard about the trouble you had with your 1990 or your 2012 Jeep Wrangler, I was deeply troubled. I've recently been assigned to your case and wanted to give you my contact information to let you know that the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau is currently evaluating the Jeep anti-lock skid system for a possible recall. If you'd like to provide any more information about the incident you experienced back in 2019, please don't hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, agent name, agent phone, so forth. Now, in this file, we've essentially put the first line is going to be the line that we send as the message. And the truth is, so I drive a 1999 Ford F-350. It's a beautiful truck. I love that vehicle. And if I got an email from someone that said, problem with your 1999 Ford F-350, I would probably open that email. Whoever's sending me this knows the car that I drive, and I'm probably at least going to look at it. So we're trying to do something that will at least get their eyes onto this file. Okay, so that's the task that we're going to do. We ready to do it? Yeah, let's do it. By the way, it's going to take a little time to go through all these because it's going to dispatch each email message, and that sending each one might take 3 or 4 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds. And so to run through all of these, it's going to take, I don't know, half hour or an hour or so. And so when it gets done, I would also like to have Excel send me a text message to tell me that it's done. And we'll be doing that today as well. So that's like 2 things. So we're sending email and sending text messages with Excel. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the code. Now, in this case, we have a few things kind of already set up because you're going to need to be able to provide the password and so forth. And it's probably a really bad idea to embed that password in your VBA code. We could do that, but it's just a really bad practice to put a password in code anywhere. So we have a form here that's designed to allow you to bring in, it's actually going to allow you to save your password. It's going to allow you to come up with a password that you can use to save your password. I think. It's been a while since I've looked at this form. So that's kind of already in place, and we'll use this in the example today. So here's the beginning of our sub procedure. So we've got some variables declared. We've got a loop or an if statement here. And so why don't we just, would be good if we could figure out what's going on here at all. Form password credentials, it's not a password, username, password, and if. Okay. What this is saying, oh, good. I even put a comment here. If we're here, we have a username and a password, and we're ready to send the email. So what we have kind of pre-programmed here for us is just enough to kind of collect that username and password in a secure way. So I'm going to put a stop right here. And I'll go ahead and run what we have so far. Did you get this? Enter key to unlock credentials? I don't think that's what I'm supposed to have here. I certainly don't know the key to unlock the credentials, but maybe we're supplying it. Okay, I should have reviewed this before class, but let me just type in a key here, like a little password that I'm making up at this moment. Yeah, invalid key. Okay, so we need to go find out, pause for just a second while I find out what code on this file is doing that. So it's got to be in the got to be in the onload. So user form, initialize. It's not on the initialize. So we're encrypting, we're decrypting, get credentials. Here we go. If credentials, we have a page called credentials, and it's probably hidden. Credentials, here we go. So let me bring up my properties window, F4, bring that up. Credentials. Oh, I don't think I've ever shown you this before. You're probably already familiar with your ability to hide a sheet. Like you can hide a worksheet. Show me if you know how to hide a worksheet. Looks like most of you. What you probably didn't know is there are two kinds of hidden. So if I look at the properties here on this spreadsheet, Control Windows Plus. So on this sheet, let me see if I can get to them. Can't quite get there, but there are three things. It can be visible, it can be hidden, or it can be very hidden. Very hidden is great because the only way to get it off of very hidden is to come into the VBA editor and change it from here. There's no way through the Excel interface to display that sheet or even know that sheet exists. You can also unhidden it with code. So you can have VBA that will unhide it. And so what I'm doing here is I'm saying, oh, let's go ahead and record the credentials on this hidden worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and make this visible so that we can see it. So now I should have a credentials sheet. Here's a credentials sheet. So, and what the code on the form says, hey, if there's something here, then we need a key to decrypt it. So this has been encrypted with a key. And so it's saying, you don't collect a password, there's already a password here. So I'm just going to start by clearing this out. I'll delete that. And that should clear those credentials. So now I'm going to run that procedure again, and it should prompt me to create a password. If I can find my code. Here it is. So I'm going to go back to my module 1, send mail, and run it. That looks better. So the key here is saying, listen, it's not safe to put your username and your password on a hidden sheet, even if it's very hidden, unless it's encrypted. And so this form has code in for doing some encryption. I'm not sure I would call it military grade encryption, but it's real encryption. Without this key, there is no way to recover it. So I'm going to go ahead and put a key in here that I'm going to use to encrypt this. So I don't have to keep putting this in every time. They'll just be able to remember that key in memory and decrypt it. So username that I'm going to use to send my Gmail with. And now we need the app password. So I'm going to copy that password and paste it in. Oh, good. It's obscured. And then I'll say OK. So we made it here. I should have I just displayed my password for the recording. Darn it. So we've got the username, we've got the password, and that's there. If I was to run this through again, just hit run, not stop, but run, and then run this again, it's saying, hey, you got to unlock the credentials, and it puts the key in there. It remembers the key until I close Excel or until my code crashes. But as long as the code hasn't crashed, or I haven't stopped the code, it should remember that variable because I'm just using it as a global variable. We'll say OK, and then we get here again, and we've got the username and password in there. So you won't have to keep putting that password in, especially since it's a password that you don't want to have to type in. So we should be in good shape. OK, any questions getting to this point? Yes. The key is whatever you want. You're going to use that key to encrypt the information, and then If you give it back that key, it'll use that key to decrypt the data, look at it to see if it decrypted it correctly, and if it did, it'll retrieve your username and password. So here's that credentials sheet now that has that encrypted information. Yeah. I put the spaces in. If it fails, the next thing I'm going to do is take the spaces out. I don't remember if the space, my guess is the spaces are part of it, but I'm not positive. Yes. So first thing is make sure you get the credentials page. Do you have that credentials page showing and you've cleared it out? So you've got to delete everything off of it. With these credentials in here, the system is saying, oh, you've already got some credentials here. So give us the key and then you can unlock those credentials. So yeah, once you've cleared those out, you should be able to run it again and then supply the key, username, and password. All right, I'm going to run this through again. And then let's go ahead and write the code that we need to get down to business. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by building a loop that we should be pretty comfortable with this loop by now. A loop that's going to loop through looking at column B. As long as there's data, it's going to iterate. So I'm going to do that with a do loop. I've already got a variable R declared here. Should be pretty quick to bring this up. Let me first set R equal to 2, do until, and the name of this sheet has a code name over here of data. The name on a tab is data, the code name is data, and so I can use that to refer to do until data, UNTIL, data.cells, row number R, column number B, dot value is equal to a 0-length string, loop, increment R, and do events. Just go ahead and print off the email address that I'll be sending to. Or maybe I'll print off the name of the person. The name of the person is in column C. Same thing here, but we're looking in column C. All right, so if I run this, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my stop for now. If I run this, it should just put, I'll do R and C. It should just print what row we're on and the first name. And there we go. So we're now in control of the data that we're going to need to process and are ready to move on. Show me how many more minutes you need to get caught up to where I am. 0 or more. So a couple of you are looking for just a little bit more time. So while you're getting caught up, let me just kind of talk about conceptually what we're about to do. Let me look at our message. So our message is parameterized. We've put in some text here that we're going to want to substitute out with the actual data from the line that we're going to be sending the message from. And so there's nothing special about these angle brackets, except I want to make sure that it's data that doesn't accidentally show up somewhere else in my message. So I'm going to want to actually get the values plugged in for all of these things. Now I could write my code to kind of like one at a time, say, I'm going to replace model year with whatever column the model year is. But those tags are the same. They're just in all caps, but they're the same as the column numbers. So if I were to just make a loop that once it opens up that letter, like that template file, and just kind of looks across all of my data, and if I find a tag that matches one of the column names, just do the replacing. So instead of having to think about them each one individually, I can just say, listen, if I have any tag that matches any header here, replace it. And that's what we're going to tackle. So let's go ahead and dive in. So I think probably the next thing for me to do is to actually get that file open. So I've got up here, maybe I'll just, doesn't take really long to open a file. I think I'm going to go ahead and inside my loop. Now I'll do it outside the loop. So here, before the loop starts, let's open the message file. Now, you'll see that I've got the name of the message file right here. So depending on how sophisticated I wanted to make this, I could have different message files that are going out for different contexts. And so here it's all the same message file, but I am going to read that off of column B. Okay, so let's just go ahead and open up that file. Open, and it's in this, hopefully you download it to the same place where your workbook is. It's in the same folder where the workbook is. And so I'm going to open this workbook.path concatenated with, I'm trying to think if what we're doing today will work on Mac. I don't think it will. So I'm just going to go ahead and hard code in the Windows path character. And, oh no, we're going to have to open this. Because we're reading this off the sheet, we'll have to open it inside the loop because we have to know which row we're on. So let me just bring that inside the loop here. So that and whatever's in column 2, whatever's in column 2. That should give me the full file path. And we're going to open it for input as number 1. Let me go ahead and close number 1. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to read that whole file into a variable. The last time we worked with text files, we read them one line at a time. This time, I want to say just read the whole thing and put it into my message variable. So already I have declared a variable called message. So I'll say message is equal to the input statement. I'm going to say input. I'm going to tell it how many characters I want from which file, number 1. And I better do that inside the open and close. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go ahead and run it and stop right there. Uh-oh, didn't like this. Let me see what's wrong with my path. Oh, it's the wrong column. So this should be column B. That looks better. Thank you. So I've made that correction. I'll go ahead and run that again. Okay, so now that should have read the first 100 characters. So if I look at message, there's the first 100 characters. So I need to be able to figure out how many characters there are. And fortunately, there is a function called LOF, length of file. And I give it which file number I'm interested in. So now if I go back and my open and run that, I should get the whole message. Because I'm asking how many characters there are. And I don't think I can put the crosshatch in there, but let me just try. I think the file number 1. I don't think it lets me do that. Yeah, it doesn't even like that at all. So it's just a regular number there. Okay, so at this point now, I've got the message that I'm ready to send out. Just got to get it ready to go. So we now essentially just want to look across all of our columns. Now, we probably don't need to do the message sent column or the message, but definitely starting with a third column. And why don't we just keep going until we run out? Because I can imagine having a different data set in here that has different number of columns. So let's go ahead and do another do loop. I'm going to do until data.cells row number 1, column number C, you'll have to give C a value. Dot value is equal to a 0-length string. Next, I'm going to increment C. C equals C plus 1. Do events. And let me start C out as the third column. Debug.print C, comma, and this value. So this should just show us that we're reading right across the cells on that first row of our sheet. And of course, you end a do loop, not with the keyword next, but with the keyword loop. So F name, L name, email, agent name, we're going right across those. Now, I probably want to uppercase that. So let me just UCase. And that should get it to where they're matching my tags. Now I'm ready to replace. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to print one more thing out here. So comma, I'm also going to print what is on my current row. So same expression here. But I'd like to be able to see both what the title is, that I'm like the tag that I'm going to look for, and on my current row, what the value is. So on this one that I'm on, the manufacturer is General Motors. Whoops, did that in the middle. So I just made something look a little bit ugly. Just go to the next one. On this one, the model name is Silverado. The model year is 2018. So I've got access to these things. In fact, if I'd like to get to the tag, let me go ahead and just kind of put those angle brackets on before and after. So now I can see just what it is I'm going to be doing on my find and replace. Maybe I'll just go right back up to C equals 3. We should start with first name. So we're coming through here. I'm going to be replacing first name with Sharon, last name with Schneidel, email with that email. So that's looking great. So now let's actually do the replace. Let's just, instead of printing this out, let's just say that message equals replace. I'm going to look at my message. I'm going to look for the tag. I'm going to replace it with the value from the sheet. And then I'm going to close. And I think I want to move my stop down to after this loop. So now, if I run through this loop, message should be fully parameterized. Yeah, because I'm looping across every column, every time, for every tag that I find that matches the column name, I'm replacing it with the value from the current row. What happens if the tag doesn't exist? It will replace it for every time the tag exists. So how many times will it replace it if the tag's there once? 1. How many times will it replace it if the tag's not there? 0. It's not going to be a problem. Just it'll try to replace it, but just won't. It's a little less efficient than if we were doing each one individually, but it's going to save a nanosecond. I mean, it's irrelevant how long it takes to run, even though there's only like 4 tags I really need to change. All right, I'm going to go back up to C equals 3 and run the code from there. And my message now should be ready to go. Ooh, just first name. The rest of it looks pretty good though. At least got the analyst name and the analyst telephone number in there. I gave him a number you couldn't possibly dial. That's a great way to do it. Don't call me. Looks like I got the rest of them. So how did I miss first name? F-I-R-S-T name. Anyone can see what the problem is? Oh, the column is named F name. I think I'm going to fix that in the file. I'm going to leave the column unchanged, and I'm going to go edit my file and just change that in the file to F name. So I just edited that file, changed the tag. Have you ever gotten an email like that? Dear first name, have you gotten it? It says raise your hand if you've gotten something that's like parameterized incorrectly. Yeah, it happens from time to time. Fortunately, we're doing a proper debugging before we send out the code. All right, so I'm going to stop this and run it and run the whole thing again. So back on module 1, I'll run it. Uh-oh, because I stopped it, I'm going to have to put in the credentials again. I hope I typed them right this last time. Okay, yeah, so it looks good. Here's my message. Now, dear Sharon, when I heard about the trouble you had with your 2018 Chevrolet Silverado, I was deeply troubled. Deeply. Okay, so now I think we've gotten ourselves ready. We now have a message that we're ready to send. Actually, our message has the title as the first line. So let's go ahead and split off our subject line. So we've already got a variable called subject, but we definitely don't want to split it off until after we've done the parameterization, because the subject line needs to be parameterized as well. So now subject equals, I think I'll do it this way. Do I have a position variable? Don't have a position variable. So I'm going to do it with split. I think split will just be easier to work with. So subject is going to be the split function looking at my message and splitting it based on the carriage return character. Now there's a constant built into VBA for that called VB new line. So that's going to split this file into an array, one line. So each line is a different entry in my array. And so I'm going to bring back the 0th position. And so that should give me the subject. I'm just going to go ahead and run that. Let's see if I got my subject right. Yeah, that looks great. Trouble is my message still has the subject on it. So let me adjust the message equals the mid of message starting at the length of my subject plus 2. Might need to be plus 3. The length of the subject, I think it's plus 3, but let me do it plus 2 and see what that gives me. Yeah, it looks like I still have one of those characters. So if I had a 10 character, if that first line was 10 characters, I'd be say starting at the 10th character, which is the last character of the message. It's then a 2 invisible character sequence for the line break character. It's a line feed character and a carriage return character. So I need to add 3 onto this. And if I just run this line again, I'm in trouble because I've already made message shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and go right back up to where I open that file, and I'll just run that code through again. Now my message, should start just with Dear Sharon. So I've got message and I've got my subject ready to go. Ooh. Now I think I'm ready to dispatch the message. Show me how comfortable you are with what we've done so far. Like we're ready to go on, ready to move on. Okay. So now, this next part is not native to Excel. Let me go ahead and just run my, I'll just run through the rest of the code. Loop. Get rid of my stop. And let's go look at this other module that's included here. So there's a module that I wrote called mod Gmail. There's a function called send Gmail. Did I give you your send BYU mail on this one as well? I wrote one for sending from your BYU address as well, but it's not here. So this function takes an email address that we're trying to send to, an email address that it's from, a password to authenticate at this at Gmail, a subject line, a body, and optionally an attachment. And this is actually the path to an attachment. So if you want to attach a file to the email, you can do that as well just by giving it the path to the file that you want to attach. It then declares some objects and it initializes these objects. You might remember when we did the database assignment, or when we did the, yeah, you just barely did it. You might remember the database day in class. There's like two things. We have to get a connection to the database, and then we had to like actually execute a query using that connection. So that's similar here. So we have a config object here that is going to get us connected up. We're going to use that configuration object to connect onto a mail server. And then we'll have a message object that we use to dispatch the message. So a connection to the server, and then something dealing specific with this message that we're sending. Okay, and so here's then where we're configuring. Here's where we're getting that config object all set up. So there's a parameter called send using, and there's like different ways you can communicate with an email server. One of them is to send by knowing the host name and the port. And that's what number 2 is. When you have like the object fully defined, you would have this constant, but we don't have that constant defined here. If I just print this constant, it's going to go, we don't know what that is. But that constant is normally 2. So this is saying we're going to send this email by specifying the host and the port name. This then is the server. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. That's the protocol that we're using to send the information. And so that is the outgoing Gmail host. That's how we send information on Gmail. Back when Gmail first started in the early 2000s, you could send email using like this approach without having to authenticate. Did any of you ever get like a message, an email message that purports to be from someone, and like when you talk to them about the message, it was so weird, they're all, I didn't send that message. Has that experience happened to you? Yeah. So when this protocol was made, SMTP, it was made for a trusted network where you would trust someone who says, hey, I'm sending this message and I'm the one who's sending it. Like you could believe that. The internet, it kind of been moved over to the internet. The internet is not a trusted network. And so like people could do bad things with it. And so it was not long after people were abusing it that Google stopped and said, you've got to log in. And so that's to authenticate where we have to log in, it's port 465. So using this port number in this server, we're going to connect on, and we're telling it to use basic authentication. We tell who it's coming from, we give it the password, and we're going to use a secure socket layer. That just means that the data between my program and the Gmail server will be encrypted. So if someone else is on the network, they won't be able to see what traffic is going by. So that gets the configuration built. We're then going to configure the message, and then we're going to bind. We'll come back and look at this here in just a minute. We're going to use that configuration for the message. So we're saying the message's configuration property is going to be that object that we created. And then we're ready to send the message. So let's just look at us now getting the message ready. So the message has a to. This is who we're sending it to. From is who it's sending it from. Now, it allows us to specify who it's coming from, but the Gmail server is going to ignore that. The protocol says, tell us who it's from. But the Gmail server is, I am going to send this from whoever authenticated. So I'm leaving this here because if you're sending in a different format, you might need to specify who it's coming from. We'll specify this, the subject and the body. And there's some other properties here that I have commented out, but I've left them in here in case you want to turn them back on. So you can send a text body and an HTML body. You can send them both and let the mail client decide which one it prefers to show, the text version of your email or the HTML version. Generally, you'll see, people will see the HTML version. So, but that would have to be kind of a fully specified HTML string with tags and everything. You can give the name of the sender, the organization of the sender. I'm not even sure what that's from. This one is kind of interesting. So reply to can be a different email address. Have you ever gotten that kind of an email that comes from somebody, you hit reply and it goes to someone else? Yeah. And so that's just part of the protocol. You can say when you reply to this message, who does the message go to? And you can specify that here. I'm going to just reply will be reply to the default. Here then, we're saying, listen, if there is an attachment passed in, let's go ahead and add the attachment. So the message has an add attachment method. Now, the way I've built this function is it will take only one attachment. So you give it a file and it will attach that one file. But you'll notice it's a method, so I could call that over and over again. I could attach multiple files. Well, to do that, I'd probably want to change my attachment to be an array instead of a string. I could pass it an array of paths, and then this could iterate over that array. But for simplicity here, we're just sending the one file. This will only let you attach a single file. Now, here's where we're calling the send method of that message object, but we're in an error trap. We're saying, if there's an error, just keep moving. Here's the one that we think might cause an error. Why might it have an error? My configuration might be wrong. The email might be malformed, like the email address might not be a valid email address. There could be a problem with the network at the moment. I'm not able to actually connect to it. Whatever the reason is, if it fails in the send, then it'll have an error number. And so we're saying, listen, if the error number is 0, that's no error. The name of our function, which is send Gmail, is going to be true. It's a Boolean function. So this function will report true or false as to whether it dispatched the message. We cannot know if the user receives the message. Forget knowing if the user opened it. All we can know is, did the outgoing mail server accept the message to be dispatched? And if it did, then it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So we can use the return value in our code to decide what to do. And it will print information about the error into the immediate window so that we can debug that problem. It's then going to delete the objects that we created to make sure that they don't just kind of continue to take up memory. Okay, so a lot of steps here, and I want you to walk through this, not because I think you're going to have to write this sometime. Like, hopefully you'll use this function. Like, you need to send an email, get a copy of this workbook, and say, let's modify this workbook to, or at least use this function to be able to send the message. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just I'm going to copy this whole first line because it will show me all the parameters that I need to specify, and we'll come back to module 1. So here's where I've got my message configured. So now I'm ready to send the email. I'm going to yell it out, apparently. I'll just paste that right in here. I'll get rid of the function because I'm just calling send Gmail. It's going to return true or false. So let me put it in an if statement. If send Gmail, and let me go ahead and I'm going to get rid of the attachment because I'm not doing the attachment. That'll at least let it fit on the screen here. And I don't need the as Boolean here. Then else and if. I've got to get this configured correctly. That's why it's red. So if this thing returns true, then I'll execute whatever is in the if part. Otherwise, I'll execute what's in the else part. And so here's what I want to do. If it succeeds, I just want to record somehow on my sheet that it succeeded. And that's exactly what this first column is sent for, message sent. So this is just a place for me to plug in here, did the message get dispatched? And so I'm going to just write to that location. So that's column A. And I'm just going to put in the current time from the system clock. If it fails, I'm just going to put fail. So that way, if it gets halfway through, if it gets partway through, if we have time, I'll also add the code that says, oh, some of these messages have been sent. Let's scan through until we find one that's blank, or only send it if it's blank, and then we'll move on. In fact, we'll do that right now. So send the message. Let me put another if statement around this. If, then, and if. Tab the stuff in that's inside of this. So what we want to do is we only want to send the message if data one cell is blank, because if it has in it, if it either has in it a date, I've sent the message, or it says failed, I don't want no reason to send it again. It failed the last time I sent it. So now what this is going to do is so we're going to be running through the data and parameterizing it each time. We could make this if statement a little bit bigger so it avoids some of this extra work, but it's going to save, a second or two. So as we're going through, we're checking to see, is A1 blank? If so, let's try to send the message. If it succeeds, write something to A1. If it fails, write something else to A1. Okay, so now we just have to figure out what we're sending. So our email is in which column? Oh, let's do this. Let's say as we're scanning across, I don't really want to have to know the email. So where's our loop that we're scanning? Right here. So as we're scanning across, let's do this. Let's say if we have found the email, so let me just take the uppercase of whatever is there. If the uppercase of the column we're looking at is equal to email, then we want to remember it. I think I have a variable created for email. Yep, there's already an email variable. And email equals the regular version of what's in that cell. So as we're going across the columns, when we find the one that says email, we're going to remember that so that we can use that email address when we send the message. So now I'm remembering I have the email variable set up here. I'm ready to use that for my send to will just be the email. Now from is going to be my username that I've already picked up. So I've already have these coded in here as UN and PW. So my from is going to be username, but when like that form that we brought it up was the username at gmail.com. And so the user hasn't added in the gmail.com. So I'm going to put it in right here. Password is already called PW. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of the data type. Subject is called subject. And then instead of body, we've called it message. Ooh. All right. Got my stop commented out here. This is dangerous right now because if I ran it by now, accidentally, it would actually try to send all these messages. So I'm going to put a stop back in, probably right here. Let me do one other thing here just for debugging. If R is greater than, say, 3, then exit function. If R is greater than 3. So this is just saying, hey, I don't want to accidentally cut this thing loose to send all these messages. My inbox is cluttered enough as it is. Okay, actually, I think I'm going to move this stop above the send so I can kind of step through the send and see what's going on. I think I'm ready to run it. Run it again. Oh, I'm not in the function. What am I in? I'm in a sub, so exit sub. Sub send mail is a sub. How did I get end function at the end? I'm not sure how that happened. My credentials in. Okay, so I should have my message and my subject. Subject is there, message is there. I am ready to send. So I'm going to step with Shift F8. A1 was not blank. Because I don't want row 1. What row do I want? Row R. Drag it back up there, Shift F8. Now I'm ready to send the message. And it looks like there was a problem. At least one representative required with none is found. Okay, so let's see what it printed. Oh, same problem. I'm reading it off of row 1 instead of reading it off the data. So let's go look at email. Yep, same problem here. So instead of looking at 1, I need to have that as row number R. So I'm going to stop my code. So I pick that up again. Oops. Stop that and run the code again. Needs my key. Okay, we'll step again with Shift F8. Saw the delay there, and it came into the if, so it looks like it was successful. It's printing now. Okay, I'm going to go take a look at my email. See that it came through. Let's see, I sent it to my BYU account. So, Outlook, byu.edu. There we go. Dear Sharon, when I heard about the trouble you had with your et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, sincerely, GovAllen, gmail.com. Okay, we got 10 minutes to send a text message now. So we could cut this loose. In fact, maybe I'll just continue it running. So I'll get rid of both my stop lines here, and it'll send a few more messages. Go ahead and run that. Sending those 4, and then it exited. We'll go back and look. Shouldn't take terribly long for them to come in. I don't know how to refresh this efficiently. Oh yeah, they're here already. So at least 2 more of them have come in already. Okay, so now let's take a look at what we're going to do when it's done. Maybe instead of exiting the sub, I want to exit my loop. So exit do. And that'll put me right down here. So when I get to here, now I'm ready to send myself a text message. Now, the way we're going to send a text message is by using the email to text gateway that all major carriers have. So how many of you already knew that if you knew how to send the right email, you could email someone a text message? Oh, looks like most of you have never been there before. So it's called an email to text gateway. And I've put some of these, the main ones, on here, system info. So it's always going to be your 10-digit telephone number at this domain. So my phone is on AT&T, so it's going to be my telephone number at txt.att.net. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just call send mail again. So I'll just take this, but this one's going to be set up just to send me a text message. So maybe I'll go ahead and print this because it's going to return true or false. Debug.print, send Gmail. The email that we're sending it to is, don't send it to me, please. Send it to yourself. 801-372-0683 at txt.att.net, or whichever one corresponds to your carrier. Username and password are still the same because we're still authenticating through Gmail. We're sending this with through the same mail approach. Subject, I think I could leave blank, but I'm just going to put done. And for the message, I'll put master, I have completed your bidding. And await further instructions. I like my technology to be properly deferential. My role as the user. So that should just send that message. Let me bump this down to if it's greater than 1. And we'll run this again. And when it's done, it should print either true or false, whether that was successfully dispatched or not. And it looks like it didn't expect to send these to Sharon again. Oh, because I'm writing the date to the first row. So I need to fix that part of my code. And I think my phone must be on mute. Yeah, so instead of A, this needs to write to R. And instead of 1, it needs to write to R. And hopefully that came through. Yeah, I'm going to turn my phone off of mute, and we'll just do it one more time. How long will it take? Or not spam. You got it to come through? I've got one message to come through. The second one hasn't come through yet. Master, I've completed your bidding and await further instructions. So, oh, it hasn't done because I haven't actually run the code yet, right? I'm waiting for it to run. It hasn't run yet because I haven't hit OK. All right, let's see how long it takes to come through. Looks like it's done running. That was it right there. So, mission accomplished. All right, what part of this code do you want me to show you? Probably the last part. And so one of the really useful skills is being able to get Excel VBA to reach out and interact with the real world. And we can now do that for both email and text if you know the carrier. If you don't know the carrier, usually someone says, just make a loop and try all of them. I wouldn't recommend that. You probably would work, but if you do that way, at least keep track of the ones that fail so you don't keep sending them to those other ones. I'm not sure if it would bounce or not, but I've never tried it. All right, thanks for coming. We'll call it good. Class dismissed.